Hello creatives, welcome back to my channel. I'm Angela, a graphic designer and an illustrator for all of you who do not know. And today we're going to be in Procreate and I'm going to show you how to work with different types of perspective. Perspective is very important when it comes to setting up your scene, your digital painting, whatever you're creating, even in graphic design. It is very important to know where your viewpoint is going to go. It also helps when creating dimension in your piece. So I'm here in Procreate. I'm going to start with a new one, a very simple square. I'm going to showcase 3 different types of perspective that you can utilize. We're going to break it down with 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, and if I can, 3-point perspective. 1-point perspective is very simple. It's basically like a dead-on view. Let's get our colors here. Let's just do dark gray instead. Grab a pencil, 6B. Yeah, that works. Okay, let's first figure out what our horizon line is and where our vanishing points are. With a 1-point perspective, you only have one vanishing point, and the horizon line is generally at normal eye level, or it could be above eye level or below. Let's say you have a horizon line here at eye level. So your vanishing point is going to be all the way down here. If you were to have a building, for instance, they would get smaller as you reach your vanishing point all the way back here. And they'll also get darker in color or in intensity as you get back to your vanishing point. So you end up with something that looks like this when it comes to 1-point perspective, vanishing point. And you can add in a whole bunch of details with this as well, but this is at eye level. So let's say you're looking down a street and this is exactly what you're going to see when you look down the street, this type of view. With 1-point perspective here in this first image, her vanishing point going all the way back here, and your horizon line is right here. So all the buildings are sitting on the horizon line, and then your vanishing point is going out towards the back. I did add a little bit of trees here just for fun. None of these brushes are things that you can't use. They're all within Procreate. They're the standard brushes that come with Procreate. And that's your 1-point perspective. Everything's going towards that vanishing point, and so your perspective goes all the way down here to where there would normally be something pretty extravagant back there. Like for instance, another building, and it's like extremely tall. We have like a massive building back here that everything is kind of pointing towards. We can take this same concept and do an aerial view of this 1-point perspective. It's going to duplicate our trees over here. We can take this tree here, take the building, and instead of it being from your eye line viewpoint, it'll be up in the air. So you have one vanishing point, which is going to be kind of up here off the page, and your viewing angle is going to be like somewhere up here because the building's going to be like shooting up. And so our building is going to go like this. Whoops. And our tree is also going to be going up like that. Distort our tree into our perspective here. Just flip our tree over there. And so you have this 1-point perspective happening here where the vanishing point is in an aerial view above and everything is within this 1-point perspective. Similar pieces here, just 2 different types of viewing angles for the same 1-point perspective. Now when it comes to 2-point perspective, you can take this similar painting here, and instead of it just being one vanishing point all the way to the back, there'll be 2 vanishing points. So you can do this in different variations. Our horizon line is going to be still pretty similar, about the same, and then our vanishing points are going to be about here and here. So when we are going to a vanishing point, our lines are going to kind of go like this. So when you're setting up your scene, it's going to be like a diamond. Think of a diamond. So everything you have is going to be within that type of viewing angle, going from the biggest item right in front of you all the way smaller on either side. So it creates this kind of like a three-dimensional viewpoint going on. We'll distort it and put it into the correct perspective. Since we're going to be on ground level, we have more of like a three-dimensional thing going on like this building. One side's going to be a little bit darker than the other depending on which side has like the light coming off of it. So actually it's not going to be that side, it's going to be this side. Because in all of our images, the light's coming from this way. We have a building that looks like this. I'm going to merge these two together. So we have our building, and we can duplicate this and continue it down our horizon line here. The buildings don't have to be all the same color, but I'm making them the same color just to save on some time. A handy dandy trick in Procreate is if you're selecting multiple layers and you want to duplicate them, instead of having to like select a single layer and duplicate it, you can select multiples by choosing the first one, sliding the next layer to the right, then dragging and dropping them onto the canvas, and they duplicate them all for you. Take these, put these over here, flip them. And the only difference on this side is that all the buildings with all the faces of the buildings are going to be darker. So we have to swap our colors here. So we end up with a perspective and buildings that look like this. It kind of just looks like that, which is basically what we were looking for. So we can take the grass and we can take the trees and just duplicate that again. I'm gonna bring that all the way up here, all the way at the top, because it'll be the first thing that gets seen. And we do need to break this up into our perspective here and distort this into our perspective. With perspective, anything that is closest to you or is right there on the horizon line of your viewpoint is going to be the biggest thing there. And then everything that's going towards the vanishing points or going to be further away from you is going to look very, very small. Put this in place with our perspective. And Procreate has this amazing distortion tool in it where you can do this. Since this is going to be such a steep angle and such a deep amount of perspective, do something like this. And we can make the grass keep going. I'm going to duplicate it, bring it over here, flip it, distort it a bit more within this perspective. Each side's going to be slightly different. And then we can just fill in the rest and make it look a little bit more 3D. I am using your basic Procreate brushes. I'm using swordgrass and Hessian for the actual grass. Map out where I want my grass to be. This is going to be a nice block that goes to a little bit of greenery, which is, rare for a city, but I kind of like that. Now, I know I keep selecting the colors here, but you don't have to select and do all that. You can literally just tap and hold, and it'll change it back to your previous color. And every element that you add to this, make sure that it stays within the perspective. So even with the sidewalk, with the street, anything that's closest to you is going to be bigger as it gets closer to you and then smaller as it goes away. When it comes to the little details like windows and such like that, you always have to make sure that they stay within the perspective as well. So changing them from one side of the perspective to the other, especially when it comes to this 2-point perspective, changing those up as you go along really helps the viewer to believe what's happening in the image. And you have something that looks more like this. So these are through the same scene, but with 3 different types of perspective in here. 1-point perspective, then you have more of like an aerial view of 1-point perspective. And then you have 2-point perspective, horizon line. You can also do this with a aerial view as well, which would basically be this, but in this type of orientation. You could do 3-point perspective. It does get a little bit more complex when it comes to that because it will be similar to this 2-point perspective, but you'll be more like above the horizon line. So you'll see more of the tops of the buildings and such like that when it comes to the 3-point, because your horizon line won't be the same. It'll be up here where you have a vanishing point here, a vanishing point here, a vanishing point here, and your horizon line somewhere here. So you will have more of this type, more of like a triangular thing going on here, and your buildings will be in this type of situation, where the biggest building is going to be like right here in the center bottom of the triangle, and then you're going to have your smaller buildings going down like this from one way, just like we have here, but you'll also have buildings going smaller back this way where you'll see the tops of the buildings, like the roofs of the buildings and such like that. And then that's where it kind of gets a little bit more intense, because now you have like 3 dimensions to be aware of. If any of you have seen Grey's Anatomy, that show loves this 4-point perspective type of view where they showcase the tops of the buildings going like this, where you can see it almost kind of gives like a fisheye type of effect. So you kind of have like this whole like massive like overview of a city kind of thing going on. So we have our different points of perspective here while using the same image. So you can see it in many different aspects. So I hope you all learned a little bit more about perspective and how to use it and how to create different variations of the same image or the same atmosphere that you want to create for your pieces. And keep your perspective, your horizon line, and your viewing angle in mind when you're trying to create your pieces. It really helps with the realism for your work. If you all want to see more from me with Procreate, I do have a Patreon and I do post over there as well. So you can see videos like these before anyone else. If you want to go over there and check it out, it's in the first link in the description box for you all. And I will see you all in my next video. See you soon, creatives.